When it comes to work, it's always good to have options. Me personally, I have various skills. It's quite obvious you've got my books here, for instance. I can talk on camera. I can do web design. I've got some of my own website I've done. I can do things like that. So I can work in media. I can do all sorts of different things. Most of my life, though, my working life is spent in warehousing, in logistics, and in retail, and all sorts of things like that. So I'm capable of performing a lot of duties. So what I've been looking at to pay the bills, books don't necessarily change your life, at least immediately. It can be frustrating. So like I spoke recently. I spoke quite a lot about my back. My back's isn't it? Not as able as I used to be. It's really frustrating because I like to throw myself into things. But I've been thinking recently that I might renew my forklift. So I've got a lot of experience on forklifts. I can do bendy, side loader, counterbalance, reach, even clamp attachments. I've done all sorts over the years. Um, but so what I'm trying to decide upon is, do I want a counterbalance forklift license or a reach forklift license? On the one hand, you can get both. Of course, it costs you more. But effectively, like, let's say you apply for some jobs and you get one. It's realistically, for the most part, you're going to be hired to do one or the other. It's unlikely someone's going to hire you to do the counterbalance and the reach. It'll be a job that requires just reach truck only or counterbalance only. So you could end up putting yourself in for two licenses and only really utilize one, unless you're in and out of jobs. But it does give you the options, which I think is really beneficial. So what I want to talk about here, I'm going to show my license thing at the moment, just to show people why not. So this is a job I did previously. I left September 2023. It was hurting my back. I was actually operating counterbalance and reach. I'm very proficient. Like I said, I left in the end because it was a physically demanding job too. But as you can see here, I don't know if it's going to be quite clear. I don't know if it's coming up on the camera properly there. I don't know if you can see it. It says reach, truck, and counterbalance lasts 1 year. I don't know if it shows the date there. But yeah, January 2023. So effectively, it's an in-house license, and it expired. Let's give it this camera. It expired last year. Yeah, about a year ago. But normally, a forklift license would last 3 years if you get it professionally done. Now, that's not the only place I've operated a forklift in my lifetime. I've had, I don't know if it's worldwide or just UK, but RTITB, it's the biggest one you can have. And I've had that license before for a counterbalance. I've had an in-house license for reach truck and all the other things. So I'm always someone that's willing to learn something new. I'm always aware of how helpful that is. So realistically, when I apply for warehouse jobs, for the most part, I do tend to get taken quite seriously. Don't get every job. Sometimes don't even get to the interview. Other jobs, they're desperate to hire me. So it's nice, when it goes well, of course. So I just want to talk about the price of it all, really, because it is a little bit frustrating because I don't need the whole training. I don't need to be going through a whole week's worth of teaching me to do this, teaching me to do that. I'm good on them. I'm good. I'm safe. I'm proficient. I just need half a day. I only need a few hours. I only need till lunchtime, really. A day at the most, but realistically, I don't need that long. I only need half a day's training. Really, I just need the assessment. So with that in mind, I want to talk about like back in the day. I think it was back in 2008, maybe. I don't know. I can't remember the exact year, but a long time ago, when I got one of the licenses officially with the proper examiner. That I think back then, I think it cost me about £80. So because it was a refresher, it was just a 1 day refresher. I think it's £60 or £80. It wasn't a lot of money at all. Of course, a lot of examiners are going to want to get a week's out of you, really, because obviously it's more money. So I've been inquiring locally where I am, like how much is it for this? One company for 1 day's train, 1 day, obviously get the test. It was £180. And I thought, well, okay, is that how much it is now? Like, Jesus, because bear in mind, I'm thinking about doing each. This is £180 per license here. There's another one that's even closer to me, and they're saying 140. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, to be honest, though, it's worth thinking about, because if I'm going to end up back in a warehouse, for instance, if I can have a mechanical tool do the work for me, and I can do that, it's going to be far more beneficial to me than me doing something too physical, and it's just causing me trouble. So then I've got the issue of, do I go counterbalance or reach? To do both is going to cost me like £300 at the moment, which I haven't really got. and it doesn't seem really practical. So what I'm going to do is check out what jobs are available in the local area, what one's going to be more beneficial at the moment. I may end up doing both still, just to get them out of the way. Really, that's what I want. That's really where I'm leaning towards. You know, to me, it's trivial. Like, it would be nice if I could make money doing what I do. I shouldn't even have to go back to doing these jobs. Really, it's like I've outgrown them a long time ago. I've got more books to come out. I've still got to finish recording the audio book to the latest one. There's so much growth in a different avenue, but we still got bills to pay, and you know, I want experiences. You know, I don't want to be at home thinking about just creating this, creating that. I want to be active. So it's frustrating. So to put it into context, if people don't know much about forklifts, counterbalance trucks for the most part. Now it's not just limited to, but for the most part, counterbalance forklifts are really just to move things around a yard. So if you work for a building merchant, for instance, you'd use a counterbalance to move the pallets of wood and things like that. Um, but again, it's still duties you can do in a warehouse, but for the most part, it's more external. Um, and you would use a counterbalance to load trailers. You can unload containers as well, but you would load trailers. So when a trailer comes in, you'd get your pallets each side, and you just put them on. When you do your test, it's a bit different. So forklifts do have side shift, which is useful. So if you're loading a trailer up, you want to start, of course, from the head at the front of the trailer, and you would naturally put it on, and then you can use a bit of side shift to sort of butt it up. And again, then you would reset your you take you obviously leave the pallet. You can then reset your side shift to keep it central. Pick up the next pallet, put it on. If it needs a little adjustment, rather than adjust your whole forklift, you can just side shift it and push it into the right up against the next one to get as many pallets on as you can, and it keeps it secure. That's literally what you do. But when you do your training, for instance, you have your test assessment, they don't let you use the side shift because they see that as a mechanical aid. That's not, you need to be able to do it without that. So the test's a bit firmer like that. They have other little rules, of course. But a reach forklift is one for narrow aisles. So a reach truck is, let's say, he's working at a distribution center, a regional distribution center. The racking can be really high. Um, and that's literally what you use a reach truck for. So you go down a narrow aisle where it's really high. You're sitting sideways, turn. I like both of them. I find it's keeps my mind occupied to use the reach truck, but it does do your necking because you start looking up all the time. Um, but yeah, that can go quite high. I don't know how it is. Is it 8 meters? I can't remember. Go quite high though, to the top of the building, pretty much. Whereas a counterbalance doesn't tend to do that high. Of course, there's different weights for these machines, how much they can do. But that's really the difference. So, for instance, if you was getting hired to do counterbalance, for the most part, you're probably going to be loading and unloading trailers, dealing with deliveries. If you're doing a reach truck, you're going to be in. It's definitely inside, and it'll be working for a distribution center of sorts in narrow aisles, and you getting stock down, replenish stock, and things like that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I've got other forklifts as well, but they're the only two I'll be interested in. You can get one. I can't remember what it's called now. Telehandler, I think. I think that's one where you work on a construction yard. You can get a lot of money doing that. It don't really interest me though. It's not my sort of environment. But yeah, so that's what I'm looking to potentially do. It's, like I say, it's £140 per thing. What's frustrating though is it's only for a day's worth of like you literally getting trained for half a day. You'll have a theory test and a practical test. And then you learn your license. But it's a bit annoying, £140 just for one day's worth of a session where you already know a lot. You're not teaching you anything, you know. So that from that point of view, it just seems a lot of money, especially when you want both licenses. But what it does, it opens up a lot more of job opportunities, really. Because of course, if you've got your licenses, you can still do jobs that don't require them. But it does seem stupid to get the license and not use it. But I think it just gives you the options. You know, I've seen quite a few jobs. I've seen a few jobs recently, to be totally honest, and they're talking about licenses that I was thinking of applying for, and then just make a note to them. I've got this in-house license here, but if you need an up-to-date license, I can before commencement of the role, I can do a refresher and I can have a license prepared by then. So that, I mean, that's an option as well. I think. But like I say, to get both in some ways, getting both licenses is a waste because it's unlikely you'd need both at a given job. but it does give you options. And a license, I think, lasts about 3 years, and then you'd have to do the refresher again. But it's only 1 day refresher, and I think when you're earning the money from the forklift, for instance, I don't think like 100. It'd probably be more than 140 in future, but it is what it is. But to renew it, it's hardly the end of the world, is it? But yeah, these are the little things I have to my bow, I guess. It's not like, oh, this is incredible. You can drive a forklift. It's just I'm good at them, and in some ways, I do feel like when I'm doing my books and stuff, I do feel it's a bit of a waste when I'm good on a reach truck too, and I can do all these things. It's like be of service. Um, but yeah, just thought I'd talk about it. Really, is if anyone's interested in working in warehousing and things. It's like I told my nephew, I said, if you want to work, if you're thinking of doing anything, just get a forklift license, get yourself involved in that. You might not have the experience to start with, but you build experience, um, and then it's better. It gives you more options, but you're not destroying your body. Too many people are breaking their back and stuff, and it's just crazy. But I did say to him, because he said about if he got the forklift license, he ain't doing any lifting. And I said that's changed. That's the only trouble nowadays. Back in the day when I got my forklift license, for the most part, you was just on the forklift. It was only forklift. But nowadays, it tends to be 50% forklift and 50% manual work. So it's going to be very rare to find a role where you only operate a forklift, just because the roles people expect more from you now. So you're just expected to do other roles as well. You might get fortunate where it's just a forklift, and that'd be great. Um, but yeah, so that's really where I'm up to. I'm trying to think of just doing one first, rather than I'm not. It's unlikely I'll do both licenses at the same time. Um, it's just going to be a case of me look what's available, and then think which one I need. It's weird because back in the day, like I used to see an awful lot of counterbalance jobs. Now I'm seeing more reach, weirdly enough. But yeah, we'll see. But then I could do all this, and then I might find a role that doesn't need either. It could just say, because sometimes it says forklift preferred, doesn't actually say essential. Like the role when I got this job, for instance, I had extensive history of forklifts, um, but I hadn't operated them for like 10 years. Because I had a huge period where I weren't working, where I was just dealing with the family and things. I spoke about it in my books. It's just the way it is. But I knew I was good with them. Just it was a huge period where I hadn't used them. Um, but the background I had impressed the manager, and they just got me. Once we started the role, they just put me through the training again. And I got, and it was just come natural, just come straight back to me. Um, but in some ways, it just seems so pointless. Like because I feel like I've outgrown it. I'm more interested in, for instance, potentially doing a podcast at some point, like a proper one. More of a professional setup. Yeah, I see my books taking off. I see opportunities in different avenues, and it just seems like, why are we going back to a warehouse when we've done that? And I get bored. I do get bored at first. It's always nice when you go to a new place, though, 'cause it's always different rules, different ways of working. But it doesn't take long for it to become tedious and mundane. And it's like, oh, is this all I am? An equivalent of a robot? It's like, I don't want to be a robot. But yeah, we all have things we need to do to pay our bills, don't we? And get some money coming in. We all have wants and needs. But like I say, I'm thinking about doing this. You can get it subsidised. Like for instance, if you was to go through, like in the UK, you got Universal Credit, which is the same as Job Seekers Allowance. They will fund your training for you. But it's like I went through this course a long time ago. I think it was accounting. I was thinking about, because I've done accounting in the past as an apprentice. I was talking like a good few years ago. I was talking about doing bookkeeping and maybe get back into that. It weren't really interesting to me now, but back then I was just curious of different ways to testing myself. Because I get bored, so I want to try myself in different avenues. But they put me on this training program, and it's supposed to be 2 or 3 weeks, but it was boring as shit. Like it made no sense, and I literally sitting in a room with people that are going to do forklift training. Some were going to get security and all this other stuff, and I just thought, what has this got to do with bookkeeping? And it weren't. It was, and I call it tick boxes. It's literally a training provider's scheme to get funding. So effectively, you're paying the parking costs. You got to pay for your lunch. You're in the middle of the town centres and things, and you got to spend the day just doing absolutely pointless exercises in a class situation, just for them to get their funding. And at the very end, then you'll end up doing a few days of what you're supposed to do. And I just thought, 2 or 3 weeks of this, and maybe I'm going to get 3 days to a week's worth of actual work out of it. Like, I'm sorry, no one's going to hire me. Like, to do, let's say you want to get a job as in an accounting role again, and you're going to get some sort of bookkeeping certificate. I'm not sure a week's worth of bookkeeping is going to impress an employer. That was a waste of time. So I just sodded it off, and I thought, I ain't doing that. And I did warn my nephew recently. He's just recently passed his test for his forklift, so he's really excited. He's just waiting for the license to come through. It is the official one. He was put through it. But I did say to him, I said, be careful because you're probably going to go through little tick boxing sessions. At first, he didn't know what I meant. I said, how's your training been going? He goes, well, we've just been sitting in a classroom and they gave me this homework. I said, yeah, that's just, you don't need none of that shit. I said, they're doing that as a tick box. He still didn't understand. But then by the time he's finished, I said, those 2 weeks you did, I said, that was just them tick box exercises, wasn't it? It was just them just going through the motions so they get funding. He said, "Yeah, the forklift trainer said that. Like, if you didn't do that, they wouldn't have released the funding for the forklift, so they wouldn't have got paid." I thought it's just a scam. It's a scam. So, like I say, I could potentially get it funded, but I'd have to go through 3 weeks worth of absolute crap, and it's going to cost me enough money in parking because parking's never cheap anywhere you go. Then you got to pay for your lunches and things like that, and it's going to be tedious as shit. And by the time you've done that, you may as well just paid for it yourself. So that's, I mean, the fact that I only need a freaking 1 day refresher at the most. Because like they said they just need, like when I've contacted the providers, they've just said they need proof of your previous things, so like previous in-house, which of course I've got here. So I would just take this with me. So this is what I've got. It's dated 2023. Reach truck, counterbalance, and I'm sure at that point that'd be perfectly fine. Of course, they'd see you on it, whether you can operate things or not. I've no doubt I'll pass. So yeah, but but I could go for this, and then you never know. I might have a career breakthrough in a different direction and think, what the hell to do that for? That's my only little concern. But then at the same time, I'd like that career breakthrough anyway. Like, I wouldn't want to do this and then be stuck doing this for the next 3 years. I think we do outgrow things, but yeah, part of me just thinks, I thought about it before. I went back into warehousing a while ago, and sometimes I miss that. I miss the task. Sometimes you like when you elevate beyond. I know it's only a forklift, but once you get past the other roles, sometimes you do miss the stuff you started off doing. Like picking and things. It's simple, but it's still be in bursts. It can still be fun, depending on the products, of course. So I didn't mind it, but then I just started getting fed up, thinking, look, I can operate a forklift. I could do everything that I could do pretty much anything in a warehouse. That's the thing. I can do all the processes manually, although my back's now more of a problem than it was. But that depends on the environment in a warehouse. Maybe it's light duties anyway. But then I can use all the forklifts, all the machines. So sometimes you do get a bit fed up. You work in an environment, you see other people operating the machines like they're superheroes, and it's like, man, I could do that shit. I'm sat over here doing this crap. What's the point? So yeah, for me personally, I think if I'm looking to go into warehousing, I'm just going to do the renewal. It's the only thing that makes sense. Otherwise, I'm just going to be doing something tedious. The only thing with forklifts at the moment that I'm finding really frustrating is back in the past, you used to get more money for operating the forklifts, which makes sense. It's more of a skill than just picking up a box, manually, and you're having to pay for this training too. But what I'm seeing with the jobs lately is that they're not. I don't even. Some of them not even paying any more than a normal warehouse duties. So I find that really, really annoying. But at the same time, at least it's not hurting you. Um, so that's really my main priority with them. But yeah, worth thinking about. But of course, like just saying, if anyone does look to get a forklift license, try to make sure in the UK it's RTITB because that's the actual official um, license in the whole of the United Kingdom. I don't know if it's worldwide or not, or just UK. But I know there's other license providers, but they're not official. RTIDB is the very official one. Like you would not get turned down a job for that one. That's the universal not one. And I did look at some recently, some other providers, and it gave this other name for a license. I thought that's not going to be widely accepted. I don't know. I wouldn't want to apply for a job with that, and they say we don't accept that, and then you've got to go and do the other one anyway. It's like you might as well just do it properly. It's the same price pretty much anyway. So just do the official one. Um, but yeah, so I've just got to look around now and see what's up. Not the best time of the year really to be looking though, because obviously you look at tax years, we're going to be looking more job. You do get jobs around near Christmas, don't you? Summer. I always find between like July and September's usually good periods to look. February, leading into February, not ideal. But something's got to change. I'm looking to, like I said, I'm looking to just maybe reestablish myself back on the forklift and get it done official. But for the time being, until I've got it, I can always just provide this as proof, and you might get away with it because some people they just want to know you can operate them, and that is proof that I have done it. It may be enough that I don't, because some places, even if you've got the official license, they'll still put you through an in-house program anyway. It's a bit like with my nephew, to be honest, where I said he's gone through this pointless phase. That I've done enough warehouse roles to know what you need, what you don't really need. And for instance, he's got certificates on manual handling and certificates on all sorts of shit within a warehouse. And I said, you don't need none of that crap. I've never needed that to get a job. No one, I haven't heard of anyone ever having any of that crap. Because either way, they'll put you through the in-house training. It's like, I've never applied for anything with that. It's such a waste of time. But these companies, they just want funding. Oh, it's mad. But yeah, this is where I'm up to. Hopefully a breakthrough will come before I step back into a warehouse. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? If the universe can just catch me before then, that I'm about to just walk into a warehouse and then all of a sudden you get this massive career opportunity. We go, oh, thank God for that. But at the same time, if I go into a place and it's well managed and they're respectful, because that's the main thing for me, and I've got my licenses, I don't mind spending a year or so doing it. It's like, job's a job, as long as I'm happy doing it, I don't really care, to be totally honest. Once I'm in a happy environment, that's the main thing for me. Yeah, I like to be around people, to be honest. Sometimes, depending on the people, of course.